very good morning to you. And first of all, Minister, just on what's going on behind me, as you cast your eyes south of the border with no effective government and opposition in disarray, how would you describe the situation?
Utter chaos, shambolic and frankly disgraceful. You know, at a time when the whole United Kingdom needs leadership, probably more than it's needed leadership in any part of the post-war period, you've got the Conservative Party and the Labour Party completely abdicating responsibility. They're letting down people across England, across the entire UK, and I look on in utter horror. It is shameful, and somebody needs to get their act together. My responsibility, of course, is to provide leadership in Scotland, and I'm determined to do that, both to try to navigate a path through this situation created by the referendum, a situation not of my choosing, but as we do that, also to make sure that Scotland continues to be governed in a stable and effective way. So that's what I'm entirely focused on as First Minister of Scotland, and I think, frankly, people in England deserve better from their political leadership than they're getting today.
OK, well, share with us your thinking, and particularly for the vast majority of voters in Scotland who voted to remain within the European Union. Flesh out for us the process by which you think the EU may be able to offer Scotland a way to stay within the EU without actually having to leave, hold an independence referendum and then rejoin.
Well, I don't know that that will be possible. What I'm determined to do is explore all possible options to give effect to how people in Scotland voted and to protect Scotland's interests, to avoid us being taken out of the European Union against our will, with all of the deeply damaging and painful consequences that will entail. So that's my guiding principle, to protect Scotland's interests. I'm not starting from the premise of saying it's got to be independence. I'm starting from the premise of what do we need to do to protect Scotland's interests. But if it does appear to be obvious that the only way we can protect Scotland's interests is by looking again at independence, then that's an option that Scotland has to have. And of course, a second independence referendum in these circumstances would not just be a rerun of the 2014 one, because the context has completely changed. The UK that we voted to remain within in 2014 doesn't exist anymore. And of course, what many people saw as the stability of the UK versus the unknown of independence in 2014 is completely different. What we know for sure is that the UK faces real uncertainty and deeply damaging economic consequences of a Brexit. So independence may be the best option of securing stability for Scotland, and that's an option that we must have the right to consider.
Well, as you say, it may be an option, but just be explicit for us. And you don't know the answer to it, but is the question you are putting to the European Union, is there a way that Scotland can maintain its membership and maybe still stay part of the United Kingdom?
Look, I'll certainly be exploring that option amongst all options. We are in completely uncharted territory right now, and I hear people saying, "Oh well, when Article 50 is triggered, this will be able to happen. That won't be able to happen." The truth is, none of us know. This is unprecedented. It's never been done before, and what will happen from now on will purely be a matter of negotiation. My job is to negotiate on behalf of Scotland to try to get the best outcome for Scotland. So nothing is off the table in that, but my guiding principle is to try to give effect to the democratic will of the Scottish people as expressed on Thursday, and to act in the best interests of Scotland. And as we go forward, I'll be honest with Scotland about the complexities we face. This is not going to be straightforward, but I'm absolutely determined to try to get us through this in a way that best protects our interests, and to do it in a way that tries to unify people in Scotland, because this situation is not of our making. We didn't choose it, but we have to deal with the reality we're now in.
And tell me about your conversations with the other parts of the United Kingdom that voted to remain within the European Union, with the Mayor of London and the Deputy First Minister of Northern Ireland.
Well, I've had discussions with a variety of different people across the UK in the wake of the result on Thursday. Sadiq Khan I spoke to on Friday morning. He's in a similar position to me. Of course, our interests are not identical, and we may choose different paths in the times ahead. But London voted to stay in the European Union, as did Scotland, and he's as anxious as I am about the prospect of London and of Scotland being taken out of the single market, with all of the consequences that will entail. So I think we're keen to work together to try to explore common interests where we can. Northern Ireland, of course, is facing up to some very difficult consequences as a result of this vote. Different position in the sense that the Deputy First Minister's position is different from the First Minister's position, but I want to make common cause with as many people as possible as we all try to navigate our way through a very difficult set of circumstances. And Sadiq Khan, Labour, is in turmoil today, and if I was in Labour in England, which I'm not obviously, but I would see Sadiq Khan as one of the few bright spots that Labour has just now. I think he's a class act and has been a real star since he was elected as the Mayor of London, and I hope very much that I can work with them as we try to respectively protect the interests of the people we serve.
I'm interested in those discussions you had with Martin McGuinness in Northern Ireland. I mean, one of his and Sinn Féin's and other people's fears are that there may have to be a physical border between Northern Ireland and the Republic if one country remains within the European Union and one isn't. And well, how does that then apply to Scotland, that idea? If Scotland remained within the European Union as you want and England left, would you not need a physical border?
Well, I don't want to see a border between Scotland and England, and in any circumstances. But you raise a very good point that almost regardless of what happens in the Scottish context, some of these very real issues are going to have to be faced up to and resolved in the Irish context. Now, nobody can say that those in the Leave campaign weren't warned of all of these consequences, and I think people in Ireland should rightly be very concerned about the prospect of a border between the north and the south, and I hope there is a way that can be found to avoid some of these consequences. But these are consequences not of our making, not of Northern Ireland's making. They voted to stay in as well, but they are consequences that we now all have to deal with. And what's vital at this moment, this is the most difficult moment, I think, for the UK, with the most serious consequences in the post-war period. And what everybody needs right now is leadership, clear leadership, not leaders who pretend that the way forward is easy, but leaders who are determined to lead us forward with purpose. Now, Scotland has that. That is my promise to the people of Scotland. It's about time politicians in Westminster got their act together and provided that for the rest of the UK too.
Yeah, and leaders who, of course, have answers. And do you have the answers? It was a much-asked question during the last independence referendum in Scotland.
Dermot.
Well, suggestions then. Let me put it that way, because I was going to ask you about the currency. Sorry. Because of course last time round we got the answer that you would stay within the sterling zone. Things would be very different this time round. Are you considering joining the euro or setting up an independent Scottish pound?
I'm not considering joining the euro. I will come back to the point of currency in a second, so I'm not trying to dodge it. But can I make another point first? And this is about, you say leaders have got to have answers. Of course, if we get to the point of a second independence referendum, we will have to have worked through all of these issues and have the answers there. But no leader right now, in trying to provide leadership, should pretend that all of these answers exist right now, because we have been placed into this unprecedented situation. And what leaders have a duty to do right now with the people they serve is to navigate the way through these and find the best answers out of a difficult set of circumstances. Now, on currency, yes, one of the most difficult issues in the 2014 referendum, and of course it's an issue we have to work our way through this time too. But we're in a very different situation if we are facing a second referendum. This is not about Scotland wanting to leave anywhere. This is about Scotland wanting to stay and to protect the situation that we've got just now. So if anything, the moral case we've got for keeping our own pound and for keeping the circumstances we have right now is even stronger than it was in 2014. Now, what I'm going to do in the weeks and months that lie ahead is be very honest with the people of Scotland as we try to find a path through this. I'll not pretend that situations that are difficult are easy, or that answers that might take a bit of time to find can be conjured up instantaneously. I'm determined to lead Scotland forward in a way that finds the best way through this, in a way that unifies people in Scotland as much as possible. And if that means me going to the people of Scotland over the next couple of years and saying, in my honest opinion, the best way for us to protect our future is to become an independent country, then I will do that, and I will seek to take a majority of people of Scotland with me.
And what about the immediate future, First Minister? We have the issue of Article 50, the process, Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty, the process by which the United Kingdom would formally announce its intention to leave the European Union. As that happens, and your views on when it should be triggered, but if and when it is triggered, how closely must Scotland, in your view, be represented at those talks and negotiations?
Scotland has to be represented at every stage of this process, and our interests have to be represented in every eventuality, and I'm determined that that will happen. But I think a very important point I have to make is that I'm not going into this accepting as inevitable that Scotland is leaving the European Union, because Scotland voted to stay in the European Union. So my objective is not to find the best way of Scotland exiting the European Union, it's to find a way for Scotland to stay in the European Union. There's lots of things I'd like to see change about the European Union in future.
I'm just saying then, listening to that, there is a bit of a delay, but are you saying you might already have cut a deal then with the European Union? So
for goodness sake, Dermot, I would... the UK voted on Thursday. I think, the best will in the world, if I had been able to cut a deal by Sunday, then, that would, I think, be rather surprising. I'm not sitting here saying I've cut any deals with anybody. What I'm saying is, First Minister of Scotland, I'm going to do everything I can to give effect to how the people of Scotland voted on Thursday. And just to remind people, more than 60% of people voted to stay in the European Union. People in every single local authority area, without exception, voted to stay. If I, as First Minister, simply shrugged my shoulders and said that I accepted as inevitable that, regardless of that, we were going to be removed from the European Union, I wouldn't be fit to be First Minister. I'm going to do everything I can to protect the interests of the country I'm elected to lead.
But just to clarify that Article 50 question I put you, it was rather got, I suppose, cross purposes during the delay on the line. What I was asking was, given the Prime Minister's formulation that he believes that doesn't need to be triggered perhaps until October, I'm not talking about a weekend, you would have several months then of Scottish discussions with the European Union.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. I will be seeking to have discussions with European institutions, with other member states, as quickly as I possibly can. I'm not going to sit around waiting for the turmoil in Westminster to give way to some kind of order and leadership. My job now is to lead and try to find a way forward for Scotland. I just think people across the rest of the UK are being badly let down right now. The UK needs leadership right now, and somebody's going to have to step up to the plate and deliver it.
Good to talk to you, First Minister. Thank you very much indeed. The First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon there.